welcome to the first episode of the GarfCast, the most important and valuable podcast that you're ever going to meet in your insignificant life. My name's Trevor C.
Hell
Turverton.
yeah.
With me, we got Maddie B.
Yo, you know what it is. It's motherfucking Maddie B. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying. And of course, we got Jake Penske over here.
Hello. This is the greatest thing I'll ever do in my life.
Period. This is our magnum
Period.
opus, GarfCast,
Yeah.
you know. And last but certainly not least, we got Sean Lyons. How are you today, Sean?
I want Garfield.
Dude, I want
Please.
Garfield too. I want Garfield. This is GarfCast. We are, we're here to talk about Garfield. That's about it. We're here to talk about Garfield. So, today we're gonna start it off with a nice, easy question. What is Garfield?
Simple. Very simple question.
You know,
He's a
yeah,
cat.
I could-
it's
So-
a very important question because Garfield, he means something different to all of us, Because, Garfield, he's so big, everyone knows Garfield.
Well, he's
Everybody
a
knows
fat, is what he is.
Damn, Jake.
Okay, Jake, hold on. Hold on. He just likes lasagna, yeah, yellow shit.
Well, I'm being honest here. Like, we like envy Garfield, but I mean, he's a fat who eats lasagna at home all day.
You got a
he's
problem
got-
with that? That's the American dream.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're basically doing right now. I mean,
That's a fair point. I mean,
That's got a good
I got cashews. What's the difference?
So, what did Garfield mean to you guys on your in your childhood? Like we started the podcast with one.
I
thing.
have a question. Who's are you eating something, Sean?
No.
Who's crinkling? Jacob.
I didn't.
Are those
I
cashews?
didn't crinkle anything. The cashews are in a perfect can.
Yeah, all right.
Podcast.
I'm crinkling.
Don't
You
eat
guys,
it.
can.
you guys did hear the crinkling though, right?
I heard the crinkling.
Yeah, I heard that.
And Sean's the only one without a camera on. What are you munching, Sean?
It's not lasagna, is it?
It's
got-
lasagna.
Oh, I hope- better
You're
be.
taking it out of the tinfoil.
I'm not.
The only thing you're allowed to eat on this podcast is lasagna.
My bad.
Of
I
course.
was me though, so.
All right. So you were asking the question, what does Garfield mean to you? Garfield means a lot to me actually. I watched Garfield when I was a kid. That Garfield and Friends show. There was a DVD at the library. I saw the Halloween special somehow. I believe it was also a DVD from the library, and that kind of freaked me out as a kid. You know, there was some ghosts and some spooky stuff. But
Yeah, Garfield's terrible.
But Garfield is he's just a lovable comic character that's been around as long as I know. Matt, what does Garfield mean to you?
All right. Trevor, thanks for asking because I've been trying to get this off my chest. Garfield. He's really relatable. That's the thing I like about Garfield the most. Because we all think, man, it's Monday. This sucks. You know what I'm saying? Like no one wakes up on Monday thinking, hey, this is cool. Garfield, he hates Mondays. Garfield, he just wants to be lazy. We all want to be lazy sometimes. So. That's why I like Garfield. Sean, what do you think about Garfield, Mom?
I think Garfield, one of my favorite cats of all time. Let's say that. Who else? What cat eats lasagna? No cat other than Garfield.
For real?
Like, I could sit down, look at lasagna, and I'd be like, God damn, I'm Garfield. I am that little orange fat cat. Vibing, eating my lasagna at the dinner table. And the show was so good because I could just put it on as a kid and I could relate with my grandparents, my parents, it doesn't matter. I could sit down with anybody and watch that and we could all have a laugh. Perfect show. Love Garfield.
Who doesn't love Garfield?
Everyone loves Garfield. And like to me, Garfield, was sort of a father figure growing up because
Interesting.
he's I had so much envy for the way he lived his life. He's fat. He doesn't care. He likes lasagna. He's not sorry for it. He hates Mondays, and he's not gonna apologize to anyone for that. So that's what I really like about Garfield.
I can see that. I can see that.
Oh.
That's what Garfield means to us. But what does Garfield mean to society? How has he plagued the earth?
Garfield is one of the biggest shows ever because it can hit internationally. Because he doesn't dive into politics. He doesn't dive into social distrust between everybody. You could go to China. You're gonna find Garfield. You can go to the East Coast. You'll find Garfield. Don't matter where you go, you can find Garfield because everybody just loves the fun little cat.
What about North Korea?
Maybe North Korea. Maybe though. Maybe not because the Koreans are crazy.
One day.
Ooh, whoa.
One day, though.
Whoa.
Wait a minute.
John, we're not trying to get political on this show. This is GarfCast. I would just like to point out that anything that one host says is strictly the opinion of that host and that host alone.
Yes.
This is a sarcastic podcast as well.
That's what they all say. This is going to be used as evidence in court in the future. Just like to point that out, Sean. But Garfield's at least definitely in South Korea. We can say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, when was the last time somebody ate lasagna?
Oh, it's actually been a minute since I've had lasagna. I'm not gonna lie.
You gotta be
I'm real upset about it.
It was a few weeks ago, really. Last time I had lasagna, it was made for my whole family, and we made a lot of it. It's actually my aunt who made it, like a big tray of lasagna, and I'd snack on it from time to time. But then I realized that it gave me some problems in the bathroom.
Yes.
Very cheesy. So
for those listening, Jacob has he's a bit lactose intolerant. Just a little.
Lasagna is very high in cheese and milk product.
It's one of the main ingredients, cheese. Yes.
There's a lot of cheese.
I found myself eating a lot of it. I mean, everyone has, midnight bouts of, diarrhea, but lasagna diarrhea is pretty unique.
I think from now on we should make this podcast a mukbang where we're all eating lasagna during the entire thing.
That could be a segment.
Yeah, the lasagna munching segment. Eat like Garfield.
No,
once we can do this together, we just get this huge thing of lasagna that we have to eat by the end of the podcast.
It's like 9 people.
I like it. I like it a lot. The last time I had lasagna was about 2 weeks ago. It was on a Thursday, and after school, my friends and I went to, I believe it was Giannino's, and I saw lasagna as an item. But I didn't know that the way that they have you order, it's actually meant for multiple people. Because when you order a pizza, you're kind of expected to share it. So they had it as the lasagna was meant to be for more than one person. This lasagna, I wish I took a picture of it because it was about the size of my head.
And you got a big head. Okay.
Okay.
So it took me a week to finish this lasagna because goddamn, it was hefty. It was a hefty lasagna.
Was it good though? Was it delectable? Was it what you were looking for?
It was okay. And that I think is the most disappointing part, that I had to eat just okay lasagna for a week.
Really? Giannino's is usually pretty good.
Yeah, but I don't know if it was just
pretty surprising.
I don't know if it was just the time of day that I went, 3 p.m. if they just didn't have their best chef.
Yeah.
That might be.
But Giannino's is known for its pizza, not so
Yeah.
much
Lasagna.
lasagna. So
Can I ask a philosophical question?
sure, lay it on us.
If you take a lasagna and you put another lasagna on top of it, is that two lasagnas or is it two separate lasagnas?
So the thing about lasagna is that it is just a bunch of stacked ingredients. So I believe that it would all just combine and be one big lasagna. But I don't know, Jacob, do you have something else to say about that?
Well, I mean, if you take 2 containers of cashews and put them together, I mean, into a single container, you still have a single container of cashews. Like, the size of a lasagna isn't a unit. A lasagna is just what it is. So, I mean, if you put a lasagna on top of a lasagna, it's one lasagna because it's in the same container. So, I think that's what I think of that. It all depends on the size of your container.
Very philosophical. Thank you, Jacob. It's,
what do you think about this?
Well, I agree with Jacob. It's just basic logic. It's one lasagna. It's a tall lasagna. Don't get me wrong, but it's a lasagna.
Yeah. So, we're all in agreement here. Sean, do you have anything else you want to say about this?
Okay, I'm gonna push this one step too far.
Oh.
What does that mean? Garfield only ate one lasagna? Like, I know he ate multiple lasagnas, but wouldn't that just stack up?
If it all...
No, I don't think at that point it stacks up. I think if you have the lasagna at different times, different meals, I think that's different,
This brings up an important question. Have we ever seen Garfield poop?
That's a good question.
Because, as far as we know, yes, we know cats poop, but if out of the 40 years of Garfield content, there is not a comic where Garfield takes a dump, we do not know if that lasagna left his body.
Trevor, we also know that cats do not talk, so maybe Garfield does not poop. I mean, we don't know.
That's what I'm saying.
Here's my take on that.
Yes.
So, as I previously stated, lasagna poops are not something that should be taken lightly.
Okay.
So I mean, if Jim Davis wants to keep this comic, light and fun, like, I don't think he'd want to put that kind of image in the minds of his audience because it's just too graphic.
That's fair. But have we ever seen a litter box in the cartoons or in a comic, just as a prop or as a background,
or even just the butt of a joke? The fact that if he has gone 40 years without making a poop joke, kind of impressive.
I did just find a comic from June 2nd, 1986, where Garfield takes a toilet plunger and is marching on his way to the bathroom, and John jokingly makes a remark saying, "Litter box backed up?" And Garfield thinks, "I hate Mondays." So obviously Garfield had a little too much lasagna and somehow clogged his litter box. So
wait a minute. Hear me out. Garfield hates Mondays, right? We know this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But Garfield can't hate Mondays for the normal reason humans hate Mondays, because Garfield doesn't have a job. Every day for Garfield is the weekend. Now, we know Garfield is not the average cat. What if he holds all of his poop, it's built up during the week, and his body releases it every Monday? Because if Garfield is saying, "I hate Mondays," in reference to his litter box being backed up, that implies that Garfield only shits on Mondays. And that's why Garfield hates Mondays.
That is a very interesting theory.
Oh my God.
Trevor, I think this is a breakthrough moment, and we have to contact Jim Davis immediately.
Listen,
Well,
this is the first episode of GarfCast, and we have already solved why Garfield hates Mondays. Like,
I mean, this is the job of the GarfCast.
Oh my god. Well then, should we get into the dramatic reading?
I believe it's time to move on to the next segment. We have solved what is Garfield. We solved why he hates Monday. Welcome to the first segment, or I guess the second segment of the GarfCast. This is the dramatic reading with Jacob Pensky.
All right. So this one, I mean, for this comic, it's the first episode of GarfCast. So we're going to read the first ever Garfield comic, published by Jim Davis on June 19th, 1978. All right, this takes place in John's drawing studio. Hi there, I'm John Arbuckle. I'm a cartoonist, and this is my cat Garfield. Hey there, I'm Garfield. I'm a cat, and this is my cartoonist John. Our only thought is to entertain you. Feed me. End scene.
That was beautiful, Jacob. That was...
Wow, Jacob. I really was just immersed in that.
Honestly,
so
I thought Garfield was in the call. I'm not going to lie.
I have never been more immersed in anything. Impressive. First episode, and we got the best dramatic reading to ever happen.
You heard it here, folks.
So, what did you guys think about that comic strip, though?
Okay, so this question has always kind of interested me. How do you start a Sunday, or just any comic strip? Because, comic strips are meant to be picked up, read, and you're supposed to be able to read it without having any backstory to any of these characters.
Yeah.
They are all just punchlines. So how do you do a first strip? And Jim Davis decided to introduce the characters, directly breaking the fourth wall and talking to the audience. And I think that's kind of interesting. And I kind of am intrigued to look at how Charles M. Schultz started the Peanuts, how they started Calvin and Hobbes, or any of these other comic strips. What was the first strip? And it's cool to me that this is how Jim Davis decided to start Garfield.
Yeah, Jim Davis took an approach to directly tell the reader what the perspective of John was, and then you have Garfield, which is obviously like John's introducing, and then you have Garfield, which is just out there making the jokes. I think it's a very clever way to introduce a comic to the people so they can be ready for the next one.
Oh, definitely. Matt, what do you think?
Well, I don't have too much to say about this one. This is a pretty simple one, I gotta say, But, I really just gotta agree with Sean, It's just a good introduction to the series, I guess.
Yeah. Jacob, you did the dramatic reading, but what do you think that this strip brings to the table?
Well, I think it sort of establishes their character trait. John not being able to hear Garfield. All of Garfield's lines are in thought bubbles, and it establishes Garfield's need for food. Later on we'll find out it's lasagna, but we don't hear. But we can't read too far into this one because it is only the first one, and obviously he had no idea how far it would take him. So I think this is just a fun little, it kind of shows that a fun little comic can really take off into whatever it wants, really.
Yeah.
I think there's only one other way Jim Davis could have started Garfield, and that is, there's this, obviously, or starting from the beginning and showing Garfield's birth. But, live birth in a comic strip is kind of hard to do in 3 panels, so I understand why he stuck with this.
Yeah.
I would have loved to see both outcomes either way.
Well,
maybe we'll get the birth in a flashback episode.
Well, if we're
That would
thinking
be
that
petrifying.
way, should we all talk about our births?
No.
there's not
Excruciating
much to
detail?
say. I believe for me it was like 70 hours worth of labor for my mom, and I don't. There's not much else to say.
Yeah,
Well,
no.
I tried committing Sudoku, so what can I say?
Wait, actually, no. I do have an interesting thing about my birth. So, I was a relatively large baby, but when it was time, the water broke. No, the doctors were gonna get me out of there, but I believe it was my hand went first and I plugged the exit hole.
Ouchies.
So that's what it was. That's my story. I plugged
All right.
I didn't want to leave. Any other
All right.
interesting stories, or is it time to move on to the next segment?
No, I actually believe that is a good segue into our next topic, which is the fun fact. Now,
Fun fact of the day with Matthew Beal.
thank you, sir. So, for these early on fun facts, I really wanted to get some really important questions out of the way. So, I figured, why not start with why does Garfield like lasagna? This is a very important question, So, this is how the story goes, right? So, he was born at a Italian restaurant, Mama Leone's, to his mama and papa. And, they were stray cats, so, they often went around hunting down mice. But Garfield, he was a little bit too sophisticated for that. So he decided to eat the lasagna at the restaurant. And, that's where it began, really. Eventually, Garfield's love for the lasagna became too strong that the owner had to choose between selling lasagna and just giving it to Garfield because he had just so much of it. So, eventually the owner takes Garfield to the pet shop and, eventually meets John, and we all know where that goes, really. So, yeah, that's the fun fact of the day.
That's interesting. Now, I do have a question, Matt. What is this from? Was this shown in a comic strip, animated short?
I could not find any evidence of this, but I did find it on multiple websites. So, I do also have the out of canon, like the actual reason why Garfield likes lasagna. And that is because, Jim Davis himself, he's a fan of lasagna, and he thought it'd be funny if a cat ate lasagna. So,
Wait a minute. Matt, so you told us a story, and then you told us...
No. One is the in-canon reason, and one is the out-of-canon reason.
So, yeah. Okay. Because, obviously, no matter what, he probably went back and came up with a reason as to why Garfield likes lasagna. But the original reason was because Jim Davis thought it was funny.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
That's about it. Does he need more of a reason, really?
Not really.
All right.
So, why don't we start the next segment?
That was the fun fact of the day. All right. So the next segment is my own segment, and it is called Garf in the World. Now, this is the segment where I try to hunt down Garf cameos, whether they're official or just mentions of Garfield or references to what could be Garfield. And I'd like to start with something that's it's an official Garfield cameo. It was in the 90s, and it was called Cartoon All-Stars to the Rescue. This is an anti-drug cartoon. It's roughly a half an hour long, and it stars all the cartoon all-stars of the 90s. Now, this includes the Muppet Babies, the Ninja Turtles, the Smurfs. You got Al, the alien in here. But, of course, you have Garfield, proving that he was a cartoon all-star and one of the greats. So, if you're ever feeling like you need to not do drugs, watch this animated short of Pooh Bear and Alvin and the Chipmunks trying to tell you to stop doing drugs.
You bring up drugs, but Garfield has a lot of characteristics of a stoner, don't you think?
He's always got the munchies. He's lazy.
He hates Monday. Well, everyone hates Monday.
But stoners especially hates Mondays.
Oh, yeah.
I guess we could talk about that in a separate episode, but
Yeah, there
I
could
think
be
it's
a
pretty
whole
interesting.
episode. Is Garfield a stoner?
There is some evidence to Garfield being a stoner. I have some backed up evidence, oddly enough. But
We'll save that.
but
for
no,
some-
that is a different episode.
Yeah.
That is the special April 20th special.
Yes, it
Oh
is.
yeah.
We'll see about that.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's time for the next segment. What would Garf do with Sean Lyons?
All right, thank you, Trevor. So I just wanted to say, since this is the very first episode, I wanted to keep it light. I wanted to see how would Garfield. This is an open-ended question, so you could answer this and give us your thoughts about this as well. What would Garfield do in the modern world? You know, Garfield always takes place usually in his house, and in the show, sometimes he would go out of the house and there'd be a problem out there. And I think with Garfield today, what would he do with modern technology, medias? How would he integrate that into comics and into the shows that are being produced nowadays?
So are you saying if Garfield was created today, or if Garfield lived in our modern society?
If Garfield lived like we lived our lives, like if John lived like the modern, how would he?
Yeah.
And like,
Alright.
how would you
Yeah.
work
So,
with that?
So here's the thing. Since cartoon characters never really change, in the modern comics, Jim Davis does kind of try his best to do the perspective of the younger man. But I mean, it is still from an older person's perspective of the modern world. So, you know, Garfield's got a cell phone and like John's using dating apps, stuff like that. But, you know, it's all from a boomer's perspective of
You know, you gotta appreciate that though. You know, he's giving his best effort. You know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He's definitely trying to keep Garfield timeless though, because he never
Mhm.
does reference current events. I don't even know if he
Yeah.
referenced 9/11.
Why would
I
he?
I really hope he doesn't.
I don't think
I
we need
mean-
a 9/11 in a Garfield comic.
That
Well,
would
I
be
mean,
a story.
One of those things, like out of respect, it does bring up the question: what did Garfield? What was the Garfield strip on September 12th?
Oh,
Look it up.
I
You
wonder.
know, I'm sure there is probably some stuff of Garfield, like mourning
Like-
for those who died. I'm sure there's something about it. Maybe
Exactly,
not a
like-
strip, but there's
Mhm.
something. Because Garfield's
Like-
everywhere.
Like he obviously wouldn't try to take a joke, but did Garfield pay his respects, or did they just like act as if nothing happened in the Garfield world?
All right, this
Well-
was the comic strip on 9/11. Should I read it or should I say it?
Not 9/11, because the comic strip on 9/11 they didn't know what was happening.
Yeah.
Unless does the one on 9/11 make reference to it, or
Well, it depends. So do you live in Australia?
You know, it does not make reference, and I doubt it'll ever. I doubt it ever made
You
reference.
wanted the
to,
September 12th one, correct?
yes?
The day after. No,
Mhm.
Garfield, he just made a simple joke about the dog is missing again. So
No, the dog. Where was the
Oh,
dog? He was in New York. Oh God!
Oh no!
but I think for
Garfield's
respect reasons, Jim Davis probably would never bring up heavy topics like that. He would always keep it light and between John, Odie, and Garfield.
Mhm.
I mean,
That's
let's be honest though. No one's watching Garfield or reading the comics, trying to have like a serious time. You know, everyone's just trying to escape reality, have a good time, and you know,
Mhm.
just have, like I said, have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which you know, keeps to the idea of Garfield being timeless. So
Yeah.
I guess if Garfield was, you know, in the modern times and they made more references to modern life, it would just make Garfield not feel as timeless as he always does. To bring it
Yeah.
back to your
Yeah.
question, Sean, you know. So anything else about that we want to talk about?
I think we covered our topics pretty well today.
Okay. All right, so
Yeah.
this is the final thought segments. Anything of this overarching episode that we feel is important to bring back up, or what did we learn today, Jacob?
I want to circle back to our commentary on Garfield's bowels.
Yeah,
I
obviously.
think it was. I think it was a very. I mean, Trevor, this was amazing. I would have never thought of why Garfield hates Mondays, but I mean, your hypothesis, your saving his waste for Monday hypothesis makes a lot of sense when looking at that specific comic, and I think that was for me that was the highlight of this episode because that's something I never would have thought of.
Well, thank you. It's something that a lot of people kind of just like brush off to the side, like, oh, he hates Mondays because we hate Mondays, because like
Mhm.
The one theory for the longest time was, oh, because John has to go back to work. John works from home. He's a cartoonist.
Garfield hates John too.
We'll definitely discuss this in an episode solely based around John, but
Mhm.
it's definitely a love-hate relationship between the two of them.
Of course. Yeah.
But I do believe that this is the conclusion to the first ever episode of the GarfCast. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions of your own or you want to talk about your love for Garfield, hit us up at the GarfCast@gmail.com. Check us out on Instagram. We'll definitely have links down in the description below. So thank you for
Trevor,
listening.
what is the name of our Instagram though? I feel like that is pretty
The
important.
GarfCast is the name of the Instagram. If you all are asking.
It is the GarfCast. It is simply the GarfCast. So there's definitely going to be links down below. If you want to see, the cameo, that's going to be linked in the description. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next week on the GarfCast. Goodbye, everybody.